Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are here on a Tuesday evening. I know everyone is normally used to seeing SEC Sean host, but when we are a team, we step in and we do what we got to do, which is called work, and we love working together as a unit. And we not gonna keep people waiting. We are sitting here this evening with the man that put us all together, as post game say, the living legend, and we call him Unc here in the city. We call him No No. It's so many names, but how are you doing this evening, Unc? As I call you amongst a few other names, and it's good to have you on this evening as well.
I'm feeling fantastic, nephew. Glad to be on with you this tonight. Uh, filling in for SEC Sean, who has some other prior engagements. I'm glad you was able to step in and fill those shoes, and I know we're gonna have a fantastic stream. Everybody sit back and enjoy. Be interactive with us. Talk to us in the chat. Give us your thoughts and opinions because we do it for y'all.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. As you said, and last week was the 2 year anniversary. It was just a ball like leading up to things. And before we get into the show, yesterday, I had worked overnight into this morning, and I had thought about so many things that y'all saying, go to work, do what you got to do, Moss B. And the reunion was this weekend, and I'm wearing that WTP reunion shirt, and I was able to work with a lady by the name Miss Mary, and not knowing another lady I call within our work group at a different store, I call her Mimo, and they haven't seen each other in like 4 to 5 years, and I knew what store she worked at, and she said we got to go see her, and it was special for me to be able to cover that shift and be able to see her to make that happen this morning and for them to finally see each other over the years. So for me, that was, it brought so many things as far as in how we step in for each other and cover things and the things that can happen when you do those things. So I'm just glad to be here this after this evening and doing this hosting for SEC Sean. And we are here to talk about the NCAA, the college football season 2026 college football quarterback sleepers. The quarterbacks that when you think about they may have came off an injury, they may have just been there watching another starter progress over the years, being that next man up to get that experience. And you never know, they could bring their team to a playoff. They could bring them to a championship. They could get in that Heisman seat. They could get to that NFL draft. So for us, we gonna bring you some of our thoughts on that position. And what's your thoughts when you think about quarterback sleeper? I'm gonna ask you that when you think about a slept on quarterback.
Well, a lot of times, they always throw out all of these quarterbacks who we expect to be really, really good based on what they did the previous season, and we know they're going to come back and improve on what they did. So they're living up to the hype. But when you start talking about sleepers, these are guys that come out of nowhere, and every year you have a quarterback or 10 who come out of nowhere and really light it up. I mean,
Yeah.
if you think about Trinidad Chambers was not the starter at Ole Miss, but when he got his opportunity transferring in from a lower level group of five school, he wasn't even a group of five school. It was maybe a division two school. He got out there and he balled out. This year, he's not a sleeper, is he? He's one of the main dudes that we're looking forward to seeing play this year. So when you start talking about sleepers, you're talking about guys who are, we know they got all of the tools, but they just haven't had an opportunity to play yet. They either were sitting behind some veteran guy who knew the system and you just got to wait your turn, or it might have been a guy who came out last year, got injured, wasn't able to finish the season. Now he gets his opportunity to come back fresh off an injury and make some things happen. and his name may not be mentioned with all of those names that we've talked about in previous videos, especially when we did our top 10. So sleeper guys are guys that we know or probably out of school that and from a small school they transfer to a bigger school. We waiting to see what they can do at that level, or guys who have been injured, or guys who have just been waiting their turn to play.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I agree. And the first question, and we appreciate you, SEF Seth the Good, coming in and joining us this afternoon into the evening, as well as everybody else. Who's your guy when we talk about quarterbacks? You can name multiple. I have quite a list, but I have a few. Who's your guy at QB when we think about quarterbacks last year coming into the season? Not to sleep on. If you watch the thumbnail, we seen CJ Bailey in that header, but I'm sure that's a lot of people's guy. But who's your guy, even if it's CJ, to not sleep on this year in college football?
Well, when you threw the question out to us in the chat earlier today, I said I'm going to focus on two guys that I know my Texas Longhorns are going to face. One guy they got to see last year when Taylor Green went out hurt at Arkansas, KJ Jackson. This guy, 6'4", 225, dual threat guy, came in against Texas and went 17 to 26, 206 yards, a touchdown, and he also ran for another touchdown. I really like him. This is a guy who he didn't play a lot, but he threw 54 passes last year, and he had 0 interceptions and 3 touchdowns, 11 carries, 52 yards and 2 touchdowns. A guy that's shown that he can make some plays when given an opportunity. Now we know he was playing behind a really dynamic quarterback in Taylor Green who could do a lot of things at 6'5", 230, could run like a gazelle, had a good cannon for an arm, and now KJ Jackson is going to get his opportunity to lead Arkansas. And I think this young man, after coming in that game against Texas, he showed after those first 2 drives that he could settle himself down and make some plays. And he did just that. And I like the way he came in and kept his poise and led their team down on 2 or 3 different other scoring drives. So that's one quarterback that I was looking at and looking forward to seeing this year when he starts the season. Because when you think about the SEC and the style of play, we all know that dual threat quarterbacks are nightmares for every great defensive coordinator. And I think KJ Jackson has an opportunity to be that way. Hopefully, he can get some wide receivers to step up and play big for him. I think the scheme that they will run with their new coach will be timely for him. As long as he gets that system down, I think he'll hold off AJ Hill for the starting position. Another player who transferred in to Arkansas to compete against KJ Jackson for that spot.
I agree, and we're gonna welcome in our main man, mid post. I'm gonna say low post, mid post, and then he's taking it to the high post game sports. We appreciate you joining us. How's it going this evening?
Going well, man. How you fellas doing?
Man, feeling pretty good, man. We can't complain, man. It's a great day. It's a little hot here in the Midwest, and I'm sure you feeling some of that heat as well where you at. And we are talking about the slept on quarterbacks, and we're gonna pick you up to speed, but ask you those questions as well when you think about a slept on quarterback. What's your thoughts? And then you could go ahead and give us one of your guys not to sleep on at that quarterback position. And we appreciate you, Cookie23, tuning in this evening as well.
Yeah, man. It's quite a few players that I think about when you say I hear a huge echo.
Same here, same here.
Am I good? How about now?
Yeah, you good.
Okay, so nah, I still got an echo. Okay, y'all hear me? All right. So when I think about a sleeper quarterback, I like guys who come from the group of five with tons of experience. And one of those guys that come from the group of five with tons of experience is actually J.C. French, the quarterback from Georgia Southern, going to Cincinnati this year. I know there's been a lot of talk about the Cincinnati program and, with Brendan Sorsby coming from Cincinnati and going to Texas Tech. But here's a guy who compiled for 45 touchdowns while at Georgia Southern. And the reason why I like him so much is because, like I said, he's coming from a program at Georgia Southern where he has had tons of experience throwing the ball, running the ball, making plays. He also set a school record for 65.6% of his passes. That's pretty good. And I think if Cincinnati is going to do anything this season, JC French is going to be a dude for that Cincinnati offense. And I'm looking for him to make a lot of plays.
That's a great pick. I like that pick with JC French. I'm sorry. And you are saying it right exactly with Cincinnati. If they want to make that move with him playing very well this season, I believe Cincinnati can become something in that Big 12. So that's definitely going to be something to key on. And for me, one of the guys, it's an ACC team, and I had thought about this guy, and I was looking at him. Didn't play much, but the thing that I talk about when it comes to QBs is the ones that's willing to wait, take that opportunity, watch and learn. And this is Christopher Vizina from Clemson, who's watched the quarterback and Kate Klubnik, who we know had a shot, Heisman, possible national championship with Clemson. He's been there for year after year watching Kate Klubnik. And for me, I'm interested in watching what he could do with the weapons of having Wesco Jr. and Bryant at those 1 and 2 positions this year moving forward for Clemson and that ACC, which I feel is going to be tougher than what most think with the addition of these new quarterbacks into the conference and the playmakers that they come into the conference and have to throw to as well. So that's one of the quarterbacks that I looked at and I thought he has it right there in his arms. He just got to do his job and get it done. Any other thoughts on, just thinking about when we talk with sleepers as we dive deep into more and a few more possible quarterbacks to look at when you talk about sleeper quarterbacks? And I'm going to go to you post game and I'm going to come to you with that thought.
So you want another sleeper?
Another sleeper from you post.
Sure, man. I'm going to go to Colorado and I'm going to say that Julian Lewis, the quarterback, is a sleeper, a guy who can really break out this season. He was highly touted coming out of high school, 6'1", 190. Got a little action last year, but didn't play too much. He has a lot of raw talent, a lot of arm talent. And I think, implementing that go-go offense, which Coach Prime has brought in the OC to do, I think he's going to be able to hit guys like Danny Scudero. He got Ross, Texas guy, DeAndre Moore, transferred to Colorado this year as well. So I think, in that go-go offense, Julian Lewis is going to have a real opportunity to put up some big numbers. I don't know how good Colorado is going to be. I don't expect them to be one of the players in the Big 12 this season. But I think Julian Lewis can put up some solid numbers this year with with targets like Scudero and Moore. And also Atkins at tight end. So one of my sleepers for the 2026-27 college football season is going to be Julian Lewis for the Colorado Buffaloes.
Ooh, I like that. And I'm going to come to you, Unc, with your next one. Unmute you.
My bad, I was muted.
No, you
I
good.
like that pick you picked in Julian Lewis post game because when you think about Brennan Thompson and that go offense, he had DeAndre Moore when he was at Texas. When he was at Texas a few years ago, and DeAndre Moore was on that roster trying to find his way through because he was dealing with some injuries early when Brennan Marion was there. So I know that's going to be a really good couple right there when it comes to that passing game. He's going to find that DeAndre Moore is one of those guys that's going to be where he's supposed to be. He's going to run good routes. And I like that Julian Lewis pick that you got. For me, I'm sticking with some of the teams that I know Texas are going to play who are going to have new starting quarterbacks. I'm going with Austin Simmons at Missouri. He's coming in to replace Prabula at Missouri, a guy who played at Ole Miss last year, ended up getting injured. But listen, he played against Georgia and he played against Kentucky before he got hurt in that Kentucky game. He had 576 yards passing, 60% completion, 3 touchdowns. Now, the sad thing was he had 4 interceptions. But I think in a style of play at Missouri where they're going to be run heavy, that's going to help him out a lot. And he's also a guy who was 6'4", 215. So really good quarterback size, nice height, can see over the offensive line. I think he's going to have a really good season because it's going to be a scheme that is based on running the football. And I think he has an opportunity to really improve himself, especially as a pro style quarterback, because you know in the NFL they want to be able to run the football. And this is also a team where he could come back for another year and play so that he can get even more experience. And you know, we talk all the time about quarterbacks having 25 plus games started in college, helps them out tremendously when they get to the NFL. So the next guy I'm high on at Missouri, a sleeper, is Austin Simmons.
I like both of those picks, and like you said, post game when you think of the recruit coming in for Julian, I think this is a year that he could not only be slept on, but he could break out. He could have great a year. And like you said, that go offense is fast, the hurry up, the speed. And they said over in Colorado, Kemp is looking very good to start this year. And it's nothing I think that you would like to see better, but Prime doing great work in Colorado as he's done so many great things since he's been there and a part of that system and a part of that university as well. And, for me, another kid I went to in this quarterback sleeper, he actually played a lot last year. And I stayed in the ACC again with this one. And for the next one, I'm going to throw a couple names out there. And what I'm going to do when I throw those names out there, I'm going to go to Unc first, and then we're going to go to Post, and I'm going to just ask your thoughts on a few of these quarterbacks, and we can step into a deeper bag when we talk about some of these sleepers. I'm gonna go to, I hope I say the name right, Jaron Kawhi Sagapolatule out of Cal. He had 3,454 yards, 18 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. And the thing about this QB JKS is he had big games at Louisville and SMU, and they both were wins. One in overtime against Louisville, and that was at Louisville. And then he won a big game where he threw 4 touchdowns, both games over 300, but 4 touchdowns against Louisville and a 38-35 win. And an OT win was 29-26 at Louisville. So that's a quarterback I will definitely have my eyes on, because when you talk about big wins like that as a freshman and you come in to your sophomore season, I don't know if people could continue to sleep on you. I think you woke them up with those wins. When I overlooked things, you definitely woke me up. So 6'3" sophomore, 220. JKS is what I'm going to call him, out of Cal, and just one to definitely keep an eye on.
Yeah, it's definitely got to be JKS because I'm not about to mess up that young man's game. But listen, when you can come in as a true freshman and get 13 starts, you're halfway there to that point where we think he should be playing 25 starts in college football. Helps your career even more when you start talking about playing in the NFL. A true freshman who threw for over 3,000 yards, played against some really good ACC football competition, played in some really tough places to play when you go on the road. I feel like this young man, after this season at Cal, unless he want to continue to work on his academics there at Cal, which is one of the better schools in the country when it comes to academics, someone will definitely be knocking on his door to get him to transfer. They're going to throw this guy a bag. If he picks up stats like he did as a true freshman this year for Cal, and we know Cal isn't going to be one of the better teams in the ACC, but that doesn't mean he can't go out there and ball out, because you know that the players that they have are going to be really smart. They're going to know what they need to do, and they're going to be talented enough to make some plays. And I'm excited about this young man as well. I think his sophomore year, after starting all those games as a freshman, is going to be lights out. I'm really looking forward to him keeping his team in games, which is going to make teams at the higher level of Power 4 really look at maybe having him transfer in to their school. He's going to be a hot commodity. His agent is going to be getting a lot of phone calls.
Yeah, and it would be nice for to see him actually stay at Cal. When I was looking at him coming in, and my biggest thing is changing the university, changing the whole outlook on a program. And when you think of JKS, he's that leader, and you can't ask for much more as a freshman to lead your program, and that would bring so much more in. For me, the JKS young fella, money's the root of all evil, man. Let it bring you in for a great thing and loyalty and what they ask you to come to the school for. So that's also one that I will definitely be keyed on as well this season. When we think about the sleeper quarterbacks, is there any thoughts that come to your mind when you think about the battle that they have going in Tennessee with Faison Brandon and George McIntyre? I think that's like an NFL duel going down right now in training camp. And it's a battle for the ages, I think. Any thoughts on that? Because I have both of them on here as sleeper quarterbacks, because you don't know if one will possibly transfer or one will just stay and back up the other in the years to come.
Well, I'll say this to both of those young men and anybody watching. You have an opportunity to play quarterback, whoever gets the job, for one of the really, really good offensive minds in Josh Heupel. He is a guy who loves the long ball. He loves to get the ball into the hands of his wide receivers. He draws up some really good schematic offensive sets. You go out there and you be a student of the game, and you learn from this from Josh Heupel, you will be a much better quarterback. And Tennessee is not expected to be that great, even though they got a lot of talent on their team. They just don't quite have all the pieces there yet. But for those two young men, they got a golden opportunity to come into one of the blue bloods of college football in Tennessee. You got a chance to play in front of some really great fans in Knoxville. I'm telling you, if you get a chance to go and be the quarterback for them with a great coach, the great history, one of the Paytons was there, that we know what he did in the 4 years he was there at Tennessee. You have an opportunity to really, really ball out. And I think this is another one of those quarterbacks that Texas is going to face during the season. They're going to get Texas early. Maybe later on in the season, this guy will learn a lot from that Texas game, whichever one gets to start. And they're going to be able to really build on something for the rest of the season.
Another quarterback I think people forget about is one. I was a former Big 12 freshman of the year, and he's in a Lane Kiffin offense. And we know Lane Kiffin is a mastermind. We know injuries has derailed some of his young career that's just got started, but dual threat, and we know what he could do at the air. One take, Zay got me hip to him, and I'm speaking on Sam Levitt. What's your thoughts on Sam Levitt? And I felt he was a sleeper because not just the injuries, but now coming into LSU, it's big shoes to fill. You know, I think they have vibes of Burrow, Chase, Jefferson, you know, that whole championship vibe now with having Kiffin and having a quarterback. What's your thoughts on that along with that defense, Sam Levitt?
Man, I love Sam Levitt, and like you, one take Zaya turned me on to Sam Levitt as a freshman. The year that he in that Arizona State team took my Texas Longhorns down to the wire in that bowl game, man, they had me on pins and needles. And I feel like Sam Levitt has a chip on his shoulder because he has never really been completely healthy. He has some injuries as a freshman. He had some injuries last year, of which ended his season. He gets an opportunity at LSU with arguably the best offensive coordinator or the offensive mind play caller in the country in Lane Kiffin. I think Lane Kiffin understands that I don't necessarily need for Sam Levitt to be a dual threat quarterback. Yeah, we need you to extend some plays with your athleticism, but I don't necessarily need you to run the football. We're going to have some other guys do that. I need you to get the football into the hands of these playmakers. We got on the outside and coming out the backfield, and they got a really good tight end. I think Sam Levitt is going to be in a system with athletes around him like he's never seen before. He didn't see that at Arizona State. He's seen a lot of good guys who were gritty and tough, but now he's going to see some real athletes that he can get the ball to. I'm excited about Sam Levitt, another quarterback that Texas has to play, that Texas got to go to Death Valley to see at night. It's going to be lit. It's a later game in the season too, which means he's going to have time to really gel with his teammates and get ready for a game like that against Texas, which is later on in the season, which I think is maybe game 10 or 11 on the schedule. You on mute, Mossberg? You on mute?
We appreciate Coop tuning in this evening. And he said, opinion on Georgia football this season. And with me being an ACC guy, man, I spoke to a guy from Georgia. He's living here in the city. I hope he's watching and tuned in this evening. I think Georgia could be very scary this season. I'm going to pass the mic to Unc. He's an SEC guy. I think he could give you a little more thought on this Georgia team as well.
Well, Coop, everybody here at this channel says the king of the SEC is the Georgia Bulldogs. Until somebody can dethrone Georgia, they are the king. They're the number one team in the SEC. We're excited about them. Even though they don't have Will Muschamp as their analyst, we already knew that Kirby Smart was the brains behind that defense. They're going to have a really good defense this year. They're going to have a really good offense. I think they're going to run the ball a lot more with Frazier and possibly get Frazier over 1,000 yards, even though they're going to use their two-headed monster. I just think they're going to use Frazier a little bit more than what they did last year to get him over 1,000 yards. And the tight ends for this Georgia Bulldog team, they are legit. Those guys are they might not be Brock Bowers, but they ain't very far behind either. I really like Georgia. I like their coaching staff. I like their offensive coordinator. Of course, we think Kirby Smart is, in my opinion, the best coach in college football. We really love Georgia. And until they get dethroned, and I think they're going to get beat for the SEC championship this year by my Texas Longhorns. But I'm telling you right now, I'm glad we don't play them in the regular season.
Man, that's a good one. And I feel the same way like you. I'm going to piggyback you with that. I think Georgia's a heck of a team, man. When you think of Gunnar Stockton, think is he going to have a Heisman season, having tight ends like that, having a running back, and being Gunnar Stockton. We've just seen progression, but I think this is probably the loaded Gunner's been in his years at Georgia to do great things this season with this university and possible make an appearance in New York and that seating and that Heisman ceremony. So we definitely going to be tuned in and looking to it forward as well. And he said, "Horns down, man. Go Dogs."
Yeah, I mean, I
We
expect that.
appreciate it.
Hey, if you anybody that's not a Longhorns fan, you supposed to do horns down. But I'm gonna tell you right now, Gunnar Stockton is ready to turn the corner. Last year for Gunnar Stockton, I wanted to see if he could complete the long balls. We know he can do all the intermediate stuff. We know he's athletic enough to run the football. I wanted to see what was he able to do throwing the ball down the field. And we got to see against Tennessee, he was able to do that. I think they're going to do a little bit more of that this year. I think when they had Zachariah Branch last year, they really relied too much on the short game and didn't allow him to throw the ball downfield enough, in my opinion. This year, I think they're going to do that a little bit more. And I really feel like with the run game, that's going to help the play action pass, and that's going to help Gunnar Stockton a lot. He got a whole year of starting experience under his belt, so we expect him to be much better this year. Another one of those really good quarterbacks in the SEC, and I really feel like week in and week out, you're going to get really good quarterback play from these quarterbacks in the SEC, and Gunnar Stockton is one of them.
Yeah, I totally agree. For me, it's just great to see you tuning in this evening as well. And he got another question before we get right back into it. He said, the best college football game y'all ever seen, is that on TV? Is that up close live? What's your thoughts on that one? Cool.
Well, I mean, I don't want to sound like a homer, but the best college game I've ever seen has been the national championship game with my man Vince Young and those Texas Longhorns against USC. In fact, if you really look at the two best Rose Bowls ever, it might be the ones that Texas played in the year before against Michigan and the next year against USC, a USC team who was going for, I believe, a third national title in a row, or maybe even a fourth. I feel like that was the best game I've ever seen, simply because it came down to the wire. It was a back and forth affair, and a guy put on his cape and led his team to a national championship in the closing moments of a game. That's what you want to see when you see great games. And I'm going with that Texas game over USC as the best game I've ever seen.
Man, we're gonna get right to your games, man. That was a great one. For me, it was 31-3 Florida State, Florida being down, coming back, and then I had the thoughts of that Florida State Auburn game, keeping that streak going on that 33 straight that we had, that Jameis to Benjamin. Oh man, it's just so many games I think about, and I think that game that you just spoke on probably is definitely, if not the most iconic game. I even remember that game. Oh man, that was just a crazy thing in the city. You would have thought it was an OSU game because the city was even out that whole weekend after that game went down. So it was just a great thing to see what Vince Young did in taking down a dynasty and what we seen in USC. And it's good to see you in here, Liam. We appreciate you tuning in this evening as well. Big support, man, to Liam. Make sure y'all go tap in and follow his channel as well. Post game, he said, agreed. USC Texas was outstanding. Also Notre Dame, USC, the Bush push. and he said he met Kirby Smart as well. Cool. Georgia all over the place. And then he said, hey guys, as Liam did, and we appreciate you all tuning in with the comments. And Liam said his was the Texas versus Texas Tech Crabtree. Liam, that is a game we talk about here. Was the stadium really elevating in that game? Did you literally bounce while you were in the stands, in the crowd, or on that field turf? How did it feel in that game? And as we, continue into these sleeper quarterbacks for this 26 year, we was just speaking on Sam Levitt. I had Kenny Minchie down out of Kentucky. When you think about a Kenny Minchie, what's your thoughts on Kenny Minchie?
Yeah, I got Kenny Minchie on my list as well, man. Another one of them freaking quarterbacks that my Texas Longhorn has to play. He transfers over there to Kentucky, a Kentucky team that ended up getting two really good, talented players out of Texas, in Elijah Bo Barnes and C.J. Baxter, the running back that was at his true freshman year. He balled out. I really like Kenny Minchie. He took C.J. Carr, who we consider to be one of the top 10 quarterbacks in college football, down to the wire for the starting job last year. We've been waiting to see what Kenny Minchie can do. We've heard our man post game, and we heard our homegirl Millie G talk to us about both C.J. Carr and Kenny Minchie, because they both feel really highly about both of those quarterbacks. But Kenny Minchie will get his opportunity to be the starting quarterback for Kentucky. Now, he has a really tough schedule that he's going to have to navigate. But I think Kentucky is one of those teams that bring in a new coach, which is going to be a new offensive scheme and a whole 9 yards. But I think he's a guy who's been in a really good system at Notre Dame, and he'll know how to carry himself, how to prepare, how to be ready to take on the job as the number one quarterback at Kentucky. I really feel like this young man is going to be the difference for Kentucky in a lot of their games. And when you watch Kentucky over the past couple of years, they've always given somebody who was highly ranked in the SEC a scare. They should have beat Texas last year. They should have beat Georgia the year before that. They've always had somebody on the ropes. I really think that Kenny Minchie is going to have a fantastic season, and I'm excited to get to see him play. And I hope that he stays for another year and gets 2 years of playing time up under his belt. But I'm high on Kenny Minchie as a sleeper, and I think he's going to do some big things this year.
I agree. As post game said, he gonna ball. And Liam said, live arm, more mobile than you think. And for those tuning in, we appreciate y'all tuning in through the echo. I'm trying to figure it out myself as I'm going and trying to figure it out why it's going on. But as we go to the next one that I thought a lot about, and he played enough for me and give me glimpses in big games. Kamari Taylor, Mississippi State. Like this kid, 629 yards, 5 touchdowns, 1 interception. I think, you know, it's only, if you think about Mississippi State in the season, they started off being undefeated, then going through that tough stretch of the SEC. We didn't know who it was. It was Kamari Taylor getting them through some great wins as well. So when I think about Kamari Taylor, I think of the games at Arkansas where he had 40 yards, touchdown, some 6 rushes, 55 yards and a touchdown. But the loss to Georgia, yeah, he was 6 of 10 for 87 yards, 12 rushes for 53 yards and 3 touchdowns. Even though Georgia won in a nice blowout, I think that's when he started to discover himself. And then he followed that up, even though they lost to Ole Miss, 15 for 31, 178, 20 rushes for 173 yards with 2 touchdowns. And I think when you develop and you get your feet wet, especially in the SEC, I think you geared up for a bigger season. So I'm gonna say Kamari Taylor is one that you don't want to sleep on as well. What's your thoughts on Kamari Taylor?
Man, I'm telling you right now, Mossberg, you must be on my play sheet, bro. Because I got Kamario Taylor on my sheet as well. Another one of those quarterbacks that Texas is going to have to play. Dual threat guy, 6'4", 230. The limited playing time he had last year, he threw for 629 yards, 5 touchdowns, interception. Dual threat guy. We got to see him in the bowl game, I think the last 2 years. I thought he was going to make a run at the starting position last year. He didn't, but he got to play towards the end of the season, which I thought was a really smart move by their coach to get their future quarterbacks some playing time. I'm really looking forward to him playing this season. I think he's going to add a dimension to this Mississippi State team that they really, really need. And if you couple that with Boffman, their running back, I think that's how you say his name, they're going to be really good. If that running back stays healthy, the way he was running last year, he was one of the better running backs in the SEC in terms of production last year. With those two guys, Bothwell, I think is his name, those two together, they're going to be really, really good, man. And I hope that they can replace those dynamic wide receivers they had with all that speed in that system. Whenever you got to go on the road and play in Starkville, you better be ready because those bells are going to be ringing. Those fans are going to be ultra hyped. And hopefully they don't make the same mistake they made against Texas and let Texas come back and win that game. When you got somebody on the ropes, it's all about getting first downs and burning that clock. Don't leave no time on the clock and don't punt to a dynamic punter. So I think Kamario Taylor has an opportunity to be one of the great quarterbacks out of Mississippi, maybe another Dak Prescott. I'm looking forward to him this season, and I feel like that's another one of those quarterbacks on Texas' schedule that is a sleeper but is really talented.
Totally agree with you. And it's crazy that we picking some of the same names. I think that just goes to show that we really do our study. You I'm Neff. That makes perfect sense. And then another quarterback, before we get to my guy, one of the main guys I think will have the biggest year by far, and a lot of people still sleeping on him, but the one before him is Bo Perbula, transfer from Missouri, coming over to Virginia, dealt with a couple injuries. I just want to see this kid do great things. You know, coming over to the ACC from the SEC, that experience, even though he had an injury, I think that helps overall. You know, that experience, and then you're talking about 1,941 yards, 11 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Some of that, you know, I'm not going to blame on the injury, but just think of early in the season, threw for over 300 yards against the Kansas team for 3 touchdowns as well. So just seeing that he can have great success. What's your thoughts when you think about a Bo Perbula and what can he bring to the Virginia team?
The smart thing about Perbula is he understood he went to a destination that was very similar or the same kind of a scheme that he ran at Missouri. You're going to a James Franklin coach team who you know is going to be run first, that's going to use their tight ends, that's going to always try to make their quarterback be as efficient as possible. Now, the thing that I don't like about James Franklin systems is he don't take a lot of risk. He's going to have to allow Perbula to throw the ball down the field sometimes just to keep defenses honest and keep them from loading the box to stop the run, because we know James Franklin's scheme is about running that football and then finding your tight end and your wide receivers when the opportunity is set up for them. I really like Perbula. I think he's going to have a good season for Virginia Tech, a veteran guy who already is coming from a really tough SEC grind. If he can stay healthy and rely on the run game, and they can be in games down the stretch, he'll have an opportunity to lead his team to some victories, possibly even lead them to the point where they're ahead, and then they can just run the football and run out the clock. But I think he has the skills to make some plays, to help them win some games. And we actually got Virginia Tech as a top 5 team, I believe, in the ACC, simply because they got an experienced quarterback, and James Franklin was able to bring some Penn State guys there. We expect for Virginia Tech to be a really decent football team, at least as good as 8-4, maybe even 9-3. And I think all of that is going to be because Prbula is a quarterback with some experience playing against some high level competition in the SEC.
I agree. And the next, last but not least, man, I think this is my guy. I fell in love with him when I watched him up close and personal last year. Apologize about the echo again. I'm upset with it. But C.J. Bailey, NC State Wolfpack, 3,105 yards, 25 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. The coming out party versus North Carolina was where I seen that his next level of talent was Vince Youngest. It took me in that championship game, in moments of that game, seeing the way he move and throw the ball. But I think C.J. Bailey, 6'6", he's only a junior, 213 pounds, only gonna get bigger and stronger. Could he be the new era of what we could have seen in Vince Young being too ahead of his time, possibly? And nothing taken from Vince Young, we still know how great he was and how we felt about his game. But C.J. Bailey could be him all over again. What's your thoughts on C.J. Bailey?
I'm really shocked that NC State was able to keep CJ Bailey, man. I thought for sure somebody was going to get him to jump in the portal and leave them. We expected some big things from him last year. And the thing is, he has gotten a year of experience under his belt in that ACC conference. I think they have an opportunity to turn the corner this year. I expected them to be one of the top 4 teams in that conference last year. That didn't happen. They ran into some teams that gave them some issues. I think this year, experienced quarterback in C.J. Bailey will allow them to win a game or two that maybe they should not win. And you can expect for this NC State team to be at least 7-5, 8-4 at the end of the season. Now they got some really good football teams in the ACC this year that we expect to be really, really good, and they got some really good quarterbacks. But C.J. Bailey I think, has an opportunity to really chase Darian Mensah for the freaking ACC first team quarterback. I'm excited to see what he's going to do. I want to see if NC State can get him to the next stage in his development. You on mute, Mossberg.
As we nearing the end and talking about the quarterback sleepers, we can't not talk about statistical leaders. When you talk about passing yards, touchdowns, even a possible leader in interceptions, what's your thoughts out of all the names that we've mentioned, even if there's one that we haven't mentioned, when you talk about sleeper quarterbacks? Who could lead this nap bag as we talk about sleep in the statistical category of passing yards this season?
Out of all the people that we named, I probably have to go with Sam Levitt, man. I think Sam Levitt in a Lane Kiffin offensive scheme with weapons, with a dynamic tight end, is probably going to be the guy out of everybody that we named that will lead that group in passing yards, touchdowns. I don't think he's going to lead them in interceptions, but he's going to probably lead them in passing efficiency, completion percentage, yards per reception, All of those things, man, and I really feel like Sam Levitt understands the position that he's in. And he may not want to come out this year because of all these great quarterbacks that we talked about in our top 10 list. He may want to come back another year in Lane Kiffin's system and lead that LSU team to what could possibly be a national championship run in 2027. I'm going with Sam Levitt as the passing yards leader out of everybody we named today as our sleeper quarterbacks.
And that's a great pick. It was tough for me. It was really a toss up, I think, between three. Sam being one, J.K. as being the other. But I like this C.J. Bailey kid. It reminds me of me being an ACC guy. I think of the Russell Wilson effect. Him being a lot taller. They have a run game, and they have a tight end that can not only block but he could pass catch. And the ability that C.J. Bailey brings at that dual threat position. I like the ability of him. And I think of Lamar Jackson and players like that. You think of those when you think of within the conference. His ability to change the game within a snap of your fingers if you get any kind of opening. So I'm gonna go C.J. Bailey. I'm gonna go C.J. Bailey, and it was tough, but I'm gonna go C.J. Bailey. I think his season could get better than what it was last year, just like you said, from having that experience as well. What's your thoughts when it comes to interceptions? Who you think would lead in interceptions out of this group?
Well, when it comes to these guys that we mentioned, in terms of interceptions, I don't know how many of them are really going to have to shoulder the burden of throwing the ball a lot. I think they're all going to have some pretty comparable running games behind them, which is going to allow them to protect the ball a lot more because the run game is going to allow them to get wide receivers open to where they're able to make some easy pitches and catches for their wide receivers and them throwing passes. But if I had to pick somebody who's probably gonna do that, it'll probably be KJ Jackson at Arkansas. He's just as not going to have the kind of talent and weapons around him. Now, last year he played really well, but he didn't throw any interceptions in the times that he got to play. But he just doesn't have the talent around him for him to not lead this group that we talked about in interceptions, in my opinion.
That was, I like that pick. Because I wanted to say maybe possibility of the kid from Clemson, but I did, when you mentioned that about, being at Arkansas, that vault that they got to go through of that schedule. We know how tough their schedule is this year. I think, I'm a second that and go the same way with you on that KJ Jackson. Nothing against his talent. We just throwing it out there and possibilities and predictions when it comes to this. It's a tough thing to do for us, but we just respectively throw our predictions out there with it. But we wishing you a great season as well on all these quarterbacks that we spoke on, and for you to be mentioned when it comes to quarterbacks that slept on, it makes me think about quarterbacks that's been drafted in the fifth round, seventh round, has been not just Super Bowl champs, but you talk about those guys being the GOATs, and you talk about the next level, increasing because some of the things that they've done and wanting to be a champion and wanting to be an MVP. So many different things when it comes with being a quarterback. It starts from being a leader and, taking that time to get better, not just in a weight room, in a classroom, but on the field where you put work in before you hit that field and step on that field on game day Saturday. So we love slept on quarterbacks, for me, because I think it shows how tough you are, the fight that you have in you and that you're willing to go out there and put the work in to become successful. So that's always a great thing to see that we could talk about quarterbacks that you sleep on because there's always a tier one and everyone's trying to get there. But we talk about you in that tier one category still with you being slept on and hoping that you can reach that tier. And maybe this could be a season to shock a few and sit in New York. So from myself to you, hey, we would love to see one of you guys, maybe more, two or three, sitting in those seats in New York and not being slept on the rest of your career as we speak on you this evening here at WTP Sports News. Anything you want to say to any of the people this evening before we get out of here?
Say that last part again.
Anything you want to say to anybody before we get out of here this evening?
You know, for all of these quarterbacks that we talked about, the NIL era is here. Take advantage of the NIL era and getting some more experience playing college ball, especially under some of the dynamic offensive coordinators that some of them are going to play for, some of the offensive minds that they're going to play for. Don't be in a rush to put your name in the NFL hat. NIL is here. You got an opportunity to make comparable money. If you're not going to be a first or second round pick or maybe even a third round pick, you can hold off and stay for another year, get some more experience under your belt, get as much college playing time as you possibly can. It puts you in a better position if you had a skill and a talent to play at the next level, which is the NFL, if you get a lot of college playing experience at the quarterback position. You're on mute.
We greatly appreciate y'all tuning in this evening and dealing with my echoism, and I'll make sure I have that fixed for you all tomorrow evening, as we'll be talking and breaking down the NFC. So make sure you stay tuned into your notifications throughout our social media, as we'll be posting on those as well to get things going for tomorrow and letting you know exactly what conference it would be. But other than that, man, Mossberg is happy that he was able to be here this evening and talk with you all about these sleeper QBs of the college 2026 season, and looking forward to so much more, and just appreciate all the support far, near, right here in our backyard as well. And we just getting started. I know it's been 2 years, but I say we just getting started for a reason. And if it's you that want us to come out and get your live stream of your high school football, high school basketball game this season, definitely tap into us, WTPSportsDudes.com. We definitely going to be out tuning into some of the games, so make sure you stay tuned into our Facebook page, and we will be working on that. I do apologize on that myself, but we will be working on that and getting that updated and going a lot more as well, as it's been a busy season for us on some things, so we definitely going to be keeping it coming and working on that for you as well. Other than that, just appreciate you, Unc, and everything you do, being able to bring us together for what we do for the people, and just continuing to bring them great sports talks, reactions, breakdowns, live streams, and looking forward to commentating this season. So if it's you and you want to have that commentary, tap in with us. Mossberg love talking to sports, and I love commentating about it. I even have nicknames for them all as well. So, man, it's just something I love to do, and we all love to do, and what we doing here at WTP Sports Dudes. Other than that, this is your boy Mossberg of Level Up Sports 10, WTP Sports Dudes affiliated, man, where it started. And I won't stop, because it don't stop, as the late great say. And we appreciate those words, because they still stand today. Man, there's so many things that's great. I could go on all day, but you already know what it is. It's WTP in the building, man. We in the building, 1218, where I started on 12. And that story going to be coming soon. We's in the building, and we out. Peace.